kindergarten. Today I'm going to read you the story Massa Mouse. The book is written by Lauren L. Wool, illustrated by Pamela Keaveney. And let's look at the cover of the book. What do you see? Let's make a prediction about what we think the story is going to be about. I see a girl. She's looking through the box and it says, "Do not touch." Wonder what she's going to find inside. Maybe the story has something to do with massa. That is the food that we're going to eat on Pesach. Do you remember what the massa is made out of? That's right, it's made out of flour and water. Well, let's read and find out what this book is about. The winter Sarah was 9 was cold, very cold, and long, very long. It was not until the end of March that Sarah finally saw signs of spring in the thickening branches of the trees, in the tiny shoots of yellow and purple crocuses just breaking through the earth, and in her parents' sudden passion for house cleaning. Who is the character in the book? That's right, it's Sarah. And what season is the story happening? That's right, it's happening in the springtime. Through the last week of March and the first week of April, they swept every inch of every room spotless. Mattresses were vacuumed and turned, shades and blinds were removed and bathed in the tub. Curtains came down, were washed and starched and ironed, then rehung. Carpets were shampooed and furniture was moved and dusted from every angle. Do you know why the family is working so hard to clean their house? That's right, they are cleaning it for Pesach. And what are some of the ways that you're helping your family clean for Pesach? Sarah's job was to clean out the mess on the floor of the hall closet. When she was done, every boot stood next to its mate, every umbrella was neatly folded and tied shut, and Sarah cleaned out her own dresser drawers, folding sweaters, matching socks, and organizing blouses according to their colors. She straightened out the music and the piano bench too. "Look," she said to her mother. "Thank you, Sarah." Her mother leaned down and kissed her. "Thank you." When all but the kitchen and dining room were clean, Sarah's mother went shopping. She brought home 2 cartons of food and put them behind the big chair in the living room, and she marked it, "For Passover, do not touch." The warning was for Sarah. Why do you think her mom made that warning for her? Right, because she didn't want her to eat any of the food. It's saved special for Pesach. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah often sat backward in the big chair and peered over the headrest into those cartons of the boxes of candy and bags of nuts, the jars, the cans, the tins of spices, and she counted the days until the first Seder, the festival meal when these would be served. Sometimes Sarah leaned all the way over the back of the chair and breathed in as deeply as she could. The sharp smell of the cinnamon made her mouth water. Sometimes Sarah walked behind the chair and sat between the 2 big boxes and sniffled the coconutty smell of the macaroons. And sometimes she stuck her head into one of those boxes, and the rich aroma, that's a smell, of the chocolate-covered massa was so clear, so strong, that she could almost taste it. But she remembered her mother's clear printing on the side of each carton. What did it say, children? Right, it said, "For Passover, do not touch." And she didn't. She was listening very nicely to her mommy. When there were only 5 days to go until the first Seder night, and Sarah's parents were busy with last-minute kitchen preparations, Sarah decided to help them by reorganizing the goodies in the cartons. This wouldn't be touching. This would be helping. She walked behind the big club chair and sat down quietly and removed everything from the larger carton. Out came the marshmallow twist, the jelly slices, the macaroons, and then, that's right, the chocolate-covered massa, her favorite of the Passover sweets. Yum! The temptation was overwhelming. Sarah gave in. Carefully, she opened the box and broke off a square of the candy. She rested it on the arm of the chair and returned the package to the carton, tossing in the other foods too. She couldn't help herself. She took a bite. I wonder how her mom's going to feel when she finds out. She carried her prize to her bedroom and ate it, little pieces at a time. She sucked the chocolate off first, then she crunched the masa, licked her fingers, and finally swept the crumbs from her bed into her palm and ate the last bits. Her parents were still busy in the kitchen, and Sarah remembered she hadn't straightened out the cartons at all. So back she went, back behind the chair. Out came the goodies, but instead of straightening, the boxes, Sarah helped herself to a whole section of chocolate-covered masa, wrapped it in a tissue, and carried it to her room. She waited until bedtime, and she ate it, bite by bite. 3 days later, Sarah's mother asked her to bring the food from behind the chair into the kitchen. The applesauce and juices should go into the refrigerator, the spices should be placed on the freshly lined shelf of the pantry, and the can should be lined up on the counter where the toaster usually stood. The sweets should remain in the living room. If Sarah would please put them all in one box and throw the empty carton away. So now Sarah's helping her mother get ready for Pesach to put all the kosher for Pesach foods right where they belong in the kitchen. Sarah took the long, skinny box of after-dinner mints out of the small carton and placed it along the bottom of the larger one. Then she broke off a piece of chocolate-covered masa and ate it. Sarah moved the short, fat box of marshmallow twists and rested it sideways in the larger carton, and then she took off another corner of chocolate-covered masa and ate it. She grabbed the cellophane bag of hard candies and stuffed it into a corner of the larger carton. She took another piece of chocolate-covered masa and ate it. She pushed the bags of nuts into an empty corner, and then she took a final piece of chocolate-covered masa and ate it. As Sarah put the chocolate-covered masa back into the carton, it felt very light. I wonder why the carton felt light this time. Well, that's probably because Sarah ate so much of the masa. That couldn't be. She opened the box and looked in. Wait, there was only one small piece left. Had she really eaten all the rest? Did that mean that no one else would have a piece as an after-seder treat? And what would her parents think? Wow, how do you think Sarah's feeling now? Sounds like she feels a little bit worried. Sarah resealed the box carefully. No one could tell it had been opened. She put it in the center of the carton. All done, Sarah called her mother. Thanks again, dear. The Seder was especially festive that year. Sarah's only younger cousin, Vicky, was finally old enough to ask the 4 questions. Why is this night different from all the other nights? And Sarah was chosen to start the telling of the answer. We were slaves of the Paro in Egypt, she began reading, and the eternal Hashem brought us out there with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. Each relative read from the Haggadah, telling more of the story of the Jews' exodus from slavery. Cousin Marty recited the 10 plagues that fell on Egypt: blood, and frogs, and lice, and wild animals, and when the animals got sick, and boils, and hail, and locusts, and darkness, and the death of the firstborn. Everyone at the table spilled a drop of wine for each of the plagues named. Cousin Lee explained the symbols of the Seder plate, and the lettuce to remind everyone of the bitterness of slavery, the celery to recall the season of the year, right, because it's spring now, and the sweet tasting of the haroset, symbolizing the mortar the Jewish slaves used for building Paro's pyramids and cities, and the masa, which was the dough that had no time to rise when Moshe rushed his people out of Egypt to freedom. Sarah's favorite part of the Seder soon arrived. Her father asked her to open the door for Eliyahu and welcome him in to share their family Seder. Carol, the most musical of the cousins, led the singing as Sarah slowly walked to the front door and opened it. The wind was strong. The screen door blew open wide out of Sarah's grasp. A gust blew through the house, convincing everyone that Eliyahu really had come to their Seder, so that from this Passover to the next, each of them would have a year that had been truly blessed. After dinner and after singing, the children began their search for the afikoman, the dessert piece of masa. Sarah's father had hidden. The children would get a prize for finding it. They began their search on their own, but were unsuccessful. Hot or cold? They begged. Are we hot or are we cold? They yelled as they moved from room to room. Hot, hot, burning hot, Sarah's father told them when they reached the bookcase at the top of the stairs. You're going to melt if you don't find it soon. And there it was, wrapped in a dinner napkin on top of the books on the 3rd shelf. We found it, Marty negotiated for the group. What will you give us for it? Sarah's father was prepared. There was a book for each of them, especially chosen, especially wrapped. The adults in the living room talked about the delicious meal and told stories of other Passovers, stories told and retold every time the family got together. Sarah's mother was in the kitchen, setting out trays of fruits and nuts and candies. She carried these into the living room and asked Sarah to make room for them on the coffee table. Suddenly, Sarah remembered the box of chocolate-covered massa. Oh, how is Sarah feeling now? Sarah's aunts and uncles and cousins all sat forward, leaning towards the coffee table as the sweets were set before them. There on the tray were marshmallow twists, mints, jelly slices, macaroons, almonds, cashews, walnuts, and raisins. But there was no chocolate-covered massa. I wonder why. Who do you think ate all that chocolate-covered massa? Where is the chocolate-covered massa? Uncle Sid asked. It's Sarah's favorite. Her father's favorite too when we were little, Aunt Anne said. She smiled at her brother. Funny thing, Sarah's mother said, I bought a box, but when I opened it tonight, there was only one tiny piece of candy in it, stuck to the very bottom. That's odd, Sarah's father said. Maybe you've got a mouse. Aunt Anne suggested. A massa mouse, she added, looking at Sarah's father and smiling again. A massa mouse? What, huh? Sarah's father nodded, and then he smiled too. When we had one when I was Sarah's age, I remember. Yes, Aunt Anne said. It was a very clever means smart, little mouse. It didn't just chew its way into the chocolate-covered boxes. It opened them very neatly. Our box was opened neatly too, Sarah's mother said. I guess that's it then, Sarah's father said. We've got ourselves a massa mouse. Everyone went home around 9. There were lots of hugs and laughter at the door. Aunt Anne gave Sarah's father an extra long goodbye hug. Sarah helped her parents with the last of the cleanup chores. No one said anything. It seemed very quiet. Finally, Sarah said, I have to tell you something. Her father and mother looked at each other and smiled. Never mind, her father said gently. We know. Sarah looked at him. He put his arm around her and kissed the top of her head. Good night, little massa mouse, he said. Happy Passover. And now, for Sarah, it really was. Did her parents realize that she was the massa mouse? What do you think? Do you think they figured it out? Or do you think they still didn't know that she was the one who ate all the massa? Well, either way, chocolate-covered massa is a really great treat. And if you want to make some at home, all you have to do is take some massa, ask your parents to help you melt some chocolate, and you can drizzle the chocolate all over your massa and eat it on Pesach. It's really delicious. Happy Pesach, everybody, and thank you for listening. Bye.